government has made a commitment to investigate allegations of the flouting of the Competition Act by MILCO, a consortium of Clover. This follows a meeting between Trade and Industries Minister Ebrahim Patel and labour unions at the DTIC offices in Pretoria yesterday over ongoing strike action at Clover. The unions have accused the company of shutting down about 6 of its plants and forcing about 1,400 workers to take voluntary severance packages. We're joined for more on the story by Mametlwe Sebei, General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa President. Thank you for availing yourself this afternoon. Perhaps the latest details following your meeting with the Competition Commission.
Yes, the Competition Commission gave us the report of their preliminary investigations, particularly the response from Clover management to some of the issues that you've raised around them flouting conditions, on job creation. They promise about 500 jobs, which they are not delivering on. If anything, they've dismantled that department. They've also, promised that they would not, or rather undertook that they will not retrench anybody in 3 years. They've retrenched about 2,000. And how do they then explain that? In addition to the fact that there are issues of factory closures and so on. And I think the meeting with Competition Commission was basically to give us the responses from Clover management so that we are able to make further submissions. But one thing that we emphasized is that obviously, on the basis of private ownership, Clover does control access to information, which they are manipulating in order, obviously, to defeat the purpose, but also the objectives of the investigation by supplying wrong information and blatantly lying about the purpose for retrenchments.
This engagement with the Competition Commission and yesterday with Minister Ebrahim Patel, was it enough to quell tensions and call off the strike action?
Absolutely not. One of the things that I must say that struck me about this government is that they've certainly, stripped themselves of all the powers to act, including in this situation to expropriate, to nationalize Clover, precisely so that every time working class people and poor people call on government to intervene in their interests, they can't be able to do that. So basically they have an alibi in the legal framework that they've created, which ensures that government has absolutely no powers and no options in law to intervene in the interests of the working class and poor people. And that was very evident in our meeting with the minister, who himself, by the way, has personally committed. And I think he was very sincere in his commitment that he wants to see prevention of job losses. He wants to help us insofar as to being factory closures. But what struck me is the fact that his options in law are limited. And when we also raise the issue of expropriation, he doesn't rule it out. He said that he will seek legal opinion on that. But, what is very clear to me is that he thinks that is an option. But this is the same option that I can assure you. Every time that, in my professional work, I represent mining affected communities. Every time that we try to negotiate with mining companies, government is always wielding, a threat of expropriation of community lands in order to facilitate mining. But here, they can't wield that threat to defend jobs and to act in the same economic interest that they always raise when it comes to communities that are refusing to have their land being utilized for mining and, of course, to be expropriated by the mining companies and so on. So we are saying that the whole legal framework clearly is set against the poor and the working class people. And I think what is very evident is that if there's going to be a solution to ensure that no workers do their jobs, factories are closed, the working class is going to have to rally. The working class is going to have to ensure that they mobilize for solidarity to intensify, boycott Clover, but most importantly, to accelerate and ensure that in the coming days, we occupy all Clover factories, because that's the only way that we're going to even the odds between us and Clover management.
Let's expand on that. So in your statement, you mentioned we're looking, and I quote, at a coordinated consumer boycott program, which will see our members and young people visiting malls to ensure people do not buy Clover products. What do you mean? Is this a threat?
No, it's not a threat. In fact, we have been doing more of that. It's just a question of us escalating and making sure that it's on a coordinated basis. In Cape Town, our comrades went to the mall. It was a very peaceful demonstration. In fact, we've been well received. There's, the owner of I think, spa outlets in Western Cape, who decided that all of his spa outlets will not be buying, Clover products for the duration of the strike. And I think we've been getting a lot of positive response, because these are people who understand that their clients are the same workers, are the families of the same workers that today have been retrenched, and without income, they are not going to be able to buy. So there is a general sympathy and solidarity, and all that we are calling for is that solidarity to be translated into an organized, coordinated campaign of consumer boycott. But more than that, we are saying that effective occupation seems to be the only option on the table. But for that, we are going to require even bigger mobilizations, not only of the workers, but also of trade unions in related industries, but also across the labor movement, to engage in secondary strikes. Because if we lose the battle for Clover, one thing we can be sure, SAB is already, South African breweries is already trenching, but also Petro SA as well is already trenching as well. We are going to have a job bloodbath. We must draw the line at Clover. And it's here that we are saying it ends here and no further. And we are saying that the labor movement must ride behind us. More than that, working class communities must ride behind us, because the struggle for factory closures is that we are saying that we want to retain these factories there where they are, so that it's not just about the jobs of our members. It's about the jobs of their children, the children of their children, their brothers and sisters, their neighbors, their family members. Because what will happen to these local economies when we close the only facilities that are able to provide quality, permanent jobs, and of course to sustain many of those local economies, where many other industries, like farms, like logistics companies, are completely dependent on them being there.
Mr. Sebei, are you managing your members' expectations? You rightfully mentioned that it's not just Clover, right? A number of companies are cutting down. And here we have a statement from Clover saying that it's been subject to a difficult trading cycle for several years, where economic growth has been poor, costs have generally been rising above inflation, and consumer spending has been subdued.
Well, in 2018, Clover made a profit, right? I mean, they increased their headline earnings by, I think, 200% or so on, right? In that year, they refused to grant more than 7.5 increase for our members. So if during, years of plenty, right, if their shareholders who got an increase of dividends, I think, by over 100% and so on, why is it that during lean times, during the times of the crisis, our members must bear the brunt? I mean, these guys said to us, they are the entrepreneurs, they are the ones that take the risk. But it seems to me that their economics, is very hypocritical, at least, at best, because so they get profits when things are going well because they take the risk. But that is the risk that is there that they take unless it's materialized. When it materializes, it's our members who must be retrenched. It's our members who must get wage cuts, and it's our members and their families and communities who must have facilities that have provided them jobs for many decades that must be dismantled at their expense when all that is happening in order to again bolster the profits of their shareholders. So we are saying that the working class cannot pay and bear the brunt of the economic crisis that is not of their own making. The system is about and organized around the interests of the capitalist class, around the shareholders, the management of companies, and it's them who must bear the risk when things are not going well. But also we reject the idea, by the way, that this restructuring has anything to do with the economic crisis, with COVID, because Clover has introduced projects in silo since 2016, as the minister himself indicated. Now, that was at a time when there was some growth in the economy. That was at a time when they were having growth that, as I said, included close to about 200% increase in their headline earnings. So what we are seeing here, by way of this restructuring, is a particularly brutal model of exploitation that is imported by MILCO, which is accustomed to a slave labor of the Palestinian masses who are under a brutal military occupation that they've been funding to ensure that they can be able to exploit that labor with impunity over and above dispossessing Palestinian farmers of their land in flagrant disregard for the international law and all United Nations resolutions that have condemned illegal Jewish settlement on Palestinian land. And since they came in this country, by the way, they have flouted every single law. They have an imperialist, colonial attitude towards the workers, towards the law in this country, towards every single institution. They have disregarded the ruling of the CCMA. I mean, on Thursday, CCMA ruled that our members must get bonuses. They gave them about 50 rand, 100 rand. Where have you ever seen a third check of about 50 rand and 100 rand? Right? They have disregarded conditions of the merger. It's high time that government must act, because otherwise it's them who are encouraging this colonial outlook towards this country, towards the working class, and of course towards every institution that we have to protect the rights of the workers.
Mametlwe Sebei, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much, sir. He's the General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa president.